and how to act upon those threats and how to remediate those threats. That is what on a high level this domain will discusses or describes about. So, and also it discusses and it details about like AWS best practices for incident response and how to tackle the cloud incidents and what kind of roles and responsibilities in the incident response plan. So this is what we'll cover in this domain. And in the next domain, which is nothing but security logging and monitoring. What do you mean by security logging and monitoring? So basically, in public clouds like AWS and Azure, when you onboard the applications generate a lot of logs, infrastructure generate a lot of logs, and firewalls and everything logs will generate a lot of logs. So somewhere you need to get all those logs into a common place, and you need to monitor and you need to log those logs. And you need to do some sort of processing and identify if there are any security issues in those identify and discover any security issues in those logs and try to act upon it. So that is something related to security logging and monitoring. So for that, AWS offers some native services like Security Hub, GuardDuty, Systems Manager, like that. There are cloud native services are there. So with the help of those cloud native services, how can we discover and how can we log and how can we monitor the alerts and security incidents and issues? That is what it will discuss. Anyhow, I will cover each and every domain in a detailed way. Don't worry about it. I'm just going through the course syllabus, right? So everybody is more interested in understanding what is the course syllabus, right? So that's the reason I'm just going through this course syllabus, okay? So how to implement and design various monitoring solutions for the applications which are hosted in the AWS cloud, and how to monitor those applications for security issues. And once you monitor, whenever you identify any security alerts, how to address those security events. That is what this domain is discusses about. So here we have various cloud native security solutions, like 1 second, somebody is messaging. I believe it is like at least 60% this course will target to get a job. I mean, I don't know his name, which is mentioned as iPhone, but definitely 60 to 70% definitely it will target to get a job. Once you complete this course, at least you will talk on various aspects in the interview. Whenever if somebody asks some questions, you can at least you will have a good confidence to answer those questions. And rest of the 40% depends upon you guys, that how you train and how you get the things clear. Clear? So next one is like the third domain that we will touch upon is like infrastructure security. What do you mean by infrastructure security? See, let's take an example of an application which you're going to deploy into the cloud, either in Kubernetes, Azure Kubernetes, AWS Kubernetes, or on AWS EC2 machine, or in AWS database, or wherever it is, right? So whenever you opt for those specific services, what kind of security features and edge services that you need to use? Let's take an example of a 3-tier application, right? When you have a 3-tier applications where you have a web application and database, how you deploy those web applications and how you integrate and implement various security controls from whenever a user is trying to access that specific application which is deployed in the cloud, where you will check what is the web application firewall, how to configure web application firewall, how the load balancers and DNSs will work, and what are the various services that will be used, and how to mitigate common threats and exploits like DDoS attacks and OS prompt and SX. Can somebody be please on mute? It seems like 1 second, I'm hearing. Because log management tools comes under SOC, security operations and control. Okay, this is not related to that class. Okay, this is completely a cloud security where we will touch upon various clouds. Sorry.
Sir, what you can do is you can set the Zoom in a way that it will mute everybody.
Hmm.
So you can mute everybody. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can
yeah.
mute everybody. Yeah.
Sure, sure. Give me a minute. Let me see how can I do that. Uh, Mute all, right? That's fine. Thank you. And various services like S3, AWS EC2, and and like databases, and how they will work, and how as an application owner, how can we leverage those services, and how can we deploy them securely, and how can we try to add a lot of security controls in terms of infrastructure side to not to expose those for vulnerabilities and issues. That is something that we'll discuss in infrastructure security. I will go through each and everything in detail, but this is just a pretty basic class where I want to let you know what kind of topics that will be covered in this entire course, right? So, and in infrastructure security, where there are a lot of things like how to create a virtual private cloud, and how to deploy your workloads like EC2 machines over there, and what kind of network security controls like security groups and access control lists that can be configured, and how can you configure network firewall and application firewall. What is the difference between network firewall and application firewall? All those things will be discussed in this section. And the next pretty much important section is identity and access management. What do you mean by identity and access management? See, identity is nothing but who you are. And whenever as part of an organization, if you get an user and a password, you can log into your cloud service like AWS service. But once you log into AWS services, what exactly access that you need to fulfill your business requirement, that's where we will configure access management. So in this domain, we'll discuss about what are the users, what are the groups, what are the service principles, and how can we configure single sign-on, how can we integrate various Active Directory related stuff. So all those things will be discussed here, and what kind of least privilege access controls that we can implement, where I mean it's where users only can see whatever the data or information that he has to see to complete his task or to complete his work. As simple as that. If you take an example of an organization, so whenever you get a laptop from your company, right, you will get only user access. You never ever get the admin access, because I mean that's what your job role is. You are not an administrator, right? So so that's where you have to define the various segregation of duties, and based upon the segregation of duties and permissions, you need to give the access permission to that specific user based on his roles and responsibilities. So we will cover all those identity and access management related topics in domain 4. Okay. uh, and the next part is data protection. What do you mean by data protection? So day in, day out, when you opt for a cloud service, when you deploy a lot of applications into the cloud service, so obviously you will play with a lot of sensitive data, sensitive application data, sensitive data. Like let's say like if your application is a banking application, where you have your customers' credit card numbers, Aadhaar cards, and everything. So data in transit and data in rest needs to be taken care, right? So how you can take care of those aspects? What kind of services that are being offered by Amazon or AWS as part of the data protection? So in AWS, there is a service called AWS Key Vault, where you can create an encryption key and use that key for your applications to encrypt the data. And also you have a systems manager and secret managers. So secrets managers, where you can create a secret like API key and API password, or you can store that secrets over there, and you can use those for your applications to execute. Because end of the day, it's not a good practice to store your API key and or a sensitive information into the code, right? So that's where you have to use certain certain security controls where you will keep the secrets somewhere and use that secrets, instead of using the secrets, just call parameters and it will automatically connect to your applications or encrypt your data. So those kind of services we'll discuss. And also there are various blob storages and as well as file storages in AWS. How to store the data in AWS, like non-structured data like files, logs, Excel sheets, how you store, how you encrypt, and what is the log retention, what is the how you can make sure to not to access your S3 buckets from the internet. All those things we'll discuss in this specific domain. Okay, and the final domain that we are going to discuss about the security governance. What do you mean by security governance? Security governance in the sense, whenever you buy an AWS account as an organization, how you manage those AWS account, how you can create organizations, how you can create multi-tier accounts, and how you can create various things, and what kind of policies that you can apply or imply as on an overall organization basis. All those things will be discussed in this what you call in this domain. And also how you can implement infrastructure as code, how you can deploy various resources by using automation tools like CloudFormation, Terraform, and all those things, and what kind of best practices that we need to use when we use the infrastructure as code services. All those things will be discussed. So and also we'll be also discussed about the audit managers, and there is another service called AWS Macie which scans for the personally identifiable information in your S3 buckets and let you know that what are the personally identifiable information which are exposed in your storage. All those information that we will cover, right? So on a high level, on a 10,000 feet level, this is what we are going to discuss. So first of all, there are few prerequisites that I can request you guys to come up for the next class. Probably, I mean, it's not mandatory, but it's good to have. Let me open my notepad and add those details. Okay. By the way, maybe some of these guys might not join one of my introductory class. Let me introduce myself. Myself is Rajesh Viranki. I have around 12 years of experience, and all my experience in IT, and all my experience in IT is into cloud security, data security, DevSecOps. So I am currently working in one of the insurance company, and prior to this, I was part of a startup for 8 years. And after that, I worked in one of these service-based company for a few years, and I worked with various global clients on these security aspects. Yeah. So first of all, enroll for an AWS free account. This is needed for you guys just to work on labs and just to go through the AWS account and I understand various services that are there. And second most important thing is like go through the basics of AWS, like what is AWS and what are the various AWS services that are highly popular in the market, like EC2, S3, ELB, databases. What is WAF?
Hey Rajesh, if you are writing anything on the notepad, it is not being shared.
Oh, once. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries, man.
So go through the AWS services. I mean, if you can find a lot of resources in in internet, like in YouTube, understand what is AWS. First of all, you need to understand what is public cloud AWS and how this can, I mean, I will cover some of these things. I'm not saying that I'm not going to cover, but it would be good if you can come up with, if you can be prepared with these simple basics, right? That will be,
Yeah.
that would be really helpful, right? AWS, what is AWS and why we are using AWS, not only AWS, any public cloud for that matter, why we are using AWS, and what are the various services that are being offered. And another thing that you need to understand, what is cloud computing? That is the first and foremost thing. I will touch upon all these points, but my sincere request to you guys is that go through these simple things and understand why we are using cloud computing. And there are various some keywords like what is scalability, okay, what is elasticity, some keywords are there. What is elasticity? What is shared responsibility model? Okay, I will touch all these points, but it would be good if you can, if you guys also can just come up with some basic idea on what is this, and and what is CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. CIA triad. Okay. What is encryption? I mean, because the point is, when I start using all these words, wouldn't be new for you guys, right? So that's the reason I'm talking about. What is identity? What is authentication? What is authorization? What is least privilege access? Forgive me about spellings, but least privilege access. What is threat? What is exploit? These are all the keywords. Okay. What is vulnerability? What is OSI 7 layers? What is CVE? What is CVSS? So these are some basic keywords that will be helpful for you guys. What is S3, EC2, ALV, WAF, NACL, Internet Gateway, NAT Gateway. These are all few basics that I am expecting from you guys to at least try to just do a little bit of Google and come up with some basic idea, right? Then whenever I'm, what is VPC? What is peering? Anyhow, I will cover these topics. So these are some keywords that you guys need to understand. It's not only relevant to AWS, is relevant to security. It is relevant to generally whenever we are working in software organizations, right? You will come across most of these keywords in your day-to-day life, right? At least the people who works in network side, storage side, or a little bit of an application side, right? They'll definitely come across at least one or other of these keywords. So my sincere request is try to understand, try to get a little familiarity on these things. Okay. So, okay, let's go ahead with another topic. Okay. Uh, for example, um, okay, let me take an example of so being an employee, you joined in a okay, not an okay. You purchased a laptop, okay. What kind of security controls that that you wish to have on your laptop? Let's discuss about all those things, okay. Maybe it could be a little bit of a collaborative session. Just come up with the ideas. Like you are going to maybe you just joined a new company and your company has given you a new laptop. What kind of security controls or what kind of security things that you should expect on top of your laptop? Can somebody just be unmute and um, give me that
Yeah.
whatever that you that comes to your mind?
Yeah, typically, we usually have MFA for logging into any of
Okay.
our domain applications.
Okay.
There is always an endpoint protection antivirus solution on the system.
Okay.
There are administrative privileges that we don't get. So in a way, we are locking down on privilege access, role-based access control, in short, RBAC.
Okay.
What else? Typically a VPN solution as well, a Global Protect or OT client.
Okay.
Yeah, I can think of these.
Yeah. Speak out because this is needed. Because we will just map these words with our security.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anybody else? I mean, it's fine if it is right or wrong. That's a different story. Just speak out and get your thoughts out. Come on, guys. Come on. Anybody?
Topics related to firewalls.
Yes. What else?
Antiviruses.
Oh, antiviruses maybe come under endpoint protection, right? At least.
Yeah.
Patch management, probably that goes into the OS.
Right.
Yeah, also
Okay,
a backup,
else?
also a backup solution that exists that we get usually to back up our my documents and folder and stuff.
Would be a recovery management. Part of
Recovery.
backup and restore.
Okay. What else? Yes. Bharati, Ishwar, Lokesh, not Lokesh.
Maybe something related to access management and controls. I mean, like access towards who could access the, or it goes into a privilege.
Yeah. Maybe I think this is one thing you guys missed, probably disk encryption.
Oh yeah, yes.
What else? firewalls, right? In firewalls itself, in organization, they don't allow you to use the USB to upload and download the data, right? It's kind of a firewall, right? USB blocking.
Yeah.
Mm.
Group policies, I mean, they enforce the same
Yeah,
administrative.
GCP, and
Yeah.
group policy, correct. ED, Active Directory, domain controller. What you got? Okay, that is one thing.
Mhm.
And what else? So if you look at this one, right? So this is come under identity and access management, right? Identity. And so basically multi-factor authentication in the sense like you need to prove yourself that you are a valid user or not with various factor of authentications, like maybe your I mean initially when you try to log into your laptop or an application, you will give the username and where you have to give the password, and after the password it will ask you for another factor called either fingerprint or OTP or something, right? It comes under identity and authentication management.
Yeah.
Right? When it comes to endpoint protection and antivirus, right? It is kind of security detection. I mean, like it's detection and prevention. It's kind of a detection and prevention controls, right?
Yeah.
Like, so your endpoint protection, like antivirus, will identify what are the signatures. I mean, what are the viruses that you have on top of your laptop, and some of the intruder detection and prevention systems like IDS and IPS. Those will prevent you from not to get into certain malicious activities and stuff, right? And when it comes to administrative privileges, this is also comes under identity and authentication and authorization, authorization side of the security, right? And next one, VPN. VPN is nothing but network security. So it means like it won't allow you to log in or connect from what you call
From a non-company device.
non-compliance networks or something. And and also there are some solutions like Forescout and all those guys. It will check whenever you add the LAN cable to your laptop. First of all, it will check whether your laptop is laptop and as well as that network is secured or not before you get authenticated or connected, right? So that is something. And latest and greatest OS patch management is something that you always updated from the security vulnerabilities, whatever it is that you will see in your OSs and all those, right? Just to mitigate those or just to avoid those, you use this patch management, and you will just fix the security misconfigurations and vulnerabilities. And when it comes to firewalls, like I'll give you a small example. In one of my previous company, we used to use a lot of what you call Great Andhra and Cricinfo websites. So after a certain point of time in our organization, they blocked all those domains. That is, and we used to download a lot of unnecessary softwares and everything from the internet because it was a startup. So that's so they slowly checked our user activity behavior. Analytics, and they started blocking unnecessary and unwanted websites, because when you download something, obviously you may end up downloading some unnecessary or malicious softwares which will lead to a lot of damages and all those stuff. So it's part of a network security, right? It's part of a network security. If it is a laptop, it's a system security as well. System or endpoint security, we call it as well. So, and patch management is just to make sure that you are patching your applications for the sake of fixes and as well as security vulnerabilities. Backup and restore and recovery process is part of your regular management, and disk encryption is part of data security, right? And Active Directory is also part of your authentication. Force Scout, it's not Scoop. It's part of your network security.
Yeah.
And nowadays, people are using a lot of SIM and a lot of endpoint security solutions to continuously get the logs or monitor your system, like DLP solutions, and it will continuously monitor your activities that you are doing on top of laptop, and also it will check your laptop, and in case if there are any anomalies or unusual behavior analytics, it will raise an incident, right? It will raise an incident and all the stuff, and that is something like monitoring and incident management. So likewise, in a single laptop, if you are thinking of these many security controls, right? But in the same context, when you lift and shift an application from your on-premise to cloud, or when you try to deploy a new application to the cloud, you have to take care of various security controls, like what is my application and how it is being deployed. What is the user base that is being used by being accessed and used by used that application from various geographical location from the globe, and what kind of data that is being accessed by users, and are there any people or users or bots that are being accessed from unwanted geographical location? All those things we need to take care. And also, what kind of application it is? Is it a banking application or financial application or healthcare application? What kind of data that is being processed by that application? We need to consider all those things, right? So that's where whenever we develop a product and deploy the product or application into a cloud, we need to think about all these various lines of security controls and see whether we are able to protect our application from various security incidents and misuses, right? And so basically, whenever you do all these security things, either you prevent or you detect or you react from a security incident, right? Whenever you see a security incident, the first and foremost thing what you will do, you will first identify, which is nothing but detection, and then you will try to prevent. In case if you are not in a position to prevent and it's already into your system, you will try to react to that security incident and try to fix that, try to remediate those security issues to not to compromise your applications and solutions, right? So that is where this cloud security comes into the picture. Before cloud was emerged, all these things, whatever the security areas that I was discussing in this area, right? All have been implemented on the on-premise level or data center level. But now with the adoption of cloud, you sit in Hyderabad and your application which is hosted in cloud might be in either East US or West US, somewhere else in the globe. So you need to take care of each and every layer and every point and try to come up with the robust security controls. But security controls, right? So that's where this cloud security comes into the picture. So the end goal of a cloud security is that whatever the applications that you deployed and whatever the applications that you are being used, which are deployed on the cloud, it should not leak any unnecessary confidential information, or it shouldn't disrupt your business, and it should not leak any data. So basically, whatever the security controls that we discussed on here, it will one second. Those security controls will be used to protect your applications or protect your information from either of these triad, like confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So if you look at any of the security controls we discussed here, right? DDoS attack. One second. DOS security. Distribute of denial of service attacks. So if you look at any of the security controls, so if you look at the identification and authentication, so basically, if you take a small example, basically maybe I am Rajesh. If somebody is logged into my account as a Rajesh and do some malicious activity which compromises my integrity, right? And if somebody steal your data from the disk, which compromises my confidentiality, or if with the help of these security issues, if somebody take down your applications and end users or authenticate, ethical users who has to access your applications are unable to access, that means it ruins your availability. So with the help of all the security tools or services, we are achieving either of this control or all of these controls. Okay. Am I clear, or any doubts in this aspect?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
All right. So that is the fundamental goal. So the whole goal of the using security controls either in the cloud or in the on-premise is to achieve either of this or all of this on top of your applications. So basically, in the clouds like Azure, AWS, GCP, they have their own cloud native security services, which will provide all these services. So if you take an example of identity and authentication or multi-factor authentication, AWS itself is giving their own service. And if you take an example of endpoint protection and antiviruses, Microsoft Defender from Azure is giving this solution. And if you take an example of VPN, AWS, Azure, GCP is giving their own VPN services. So basically, cloud service providers are not let you go outside of their perimeter, and they try to give their own native security services, and they're telling you, saying that guys, use this security service and protect your applications from malicious attacks and exploits, right? And if you take an example of firewalls, also AWS and Azure are giving their own WAF service, web application firewall service, network firewall service, and all those things. So we are going to discuss, and when it comes to the data disk encryption and data security in AWS and Azure, there is a service called Key Vault, where you can create your own key and you can store your own key and use that key for the data encryption and tokenization. So these are the various cloud native services that will be used day in, day out to achieve the security for the applications that are being accessed and deployed on the cloud. Make sense? Any questions?
No.
So now when we go to the classes, right, we will take an example of each and every service, and we'll discuss how that service will work, and how can we use how can we use that service to mitigate some of the security problems and solutions, right? So that is the fundamental idea, and that is the fundamental goal of this class. Any questions, guys? Anybody else? If you have any questions, please do let me know. Somebody else. I will try to cover, with my experience, I will try to cover some of the use cases sprints. Yeah, and if you guys have come up with your own real world scenarios, and we can discuss and try to get the solution out of it, and what kind of services that we can use. If you take an example in my organization, I am taking care of vulnerability management and assessment with the help of some vendor products, and as well as with the help of some Azure and AWS cloud native services. I can touch upon those things on how we come up with those solutions and what kind of architecture that we implemented. I'll touch upon those areas. Clear, Prince, and any questions? But my sincere request to you guys is that think like a security engineer, and try to discuss all these things in a way that as a security engineer discusses. Like, so try to pick some words, some what you call nomenclature, which generally used in security, and discuss with your peers on those with those modules, which will help you a lot actually. Anything else, guys?
No.
And we will discuss about, we'll take an example of three-tier architecture and microservices down the line, and how those will be deployed, and what kind of various security controls, either in identity side, access side, authentication side, data security side, network side, that will be used. So basically, those things will be discussed. If you take an example of a best practice, you never ever deploy an application in a single tier. You need to isolate your application and make sure that you have a separate web layer, application layer, and data layer, and they never ever deployed in the single subnet or something like that. Those are some security controls that we need to follow. So we will touch upon all those real-time things. Cool, thank you. Any questions, Halima, Bharti, Mike, please, Shravan?
Hi Rajesh, Halima here.
Hey, Halima.
Yeah, hi. So is it only into monitoring part or deployment part also?
This is the whole cloud security. It's not a SOC. It's not a SOC. It's not a SOC.
Okay.
Maybe if it is a SOC training, they may just touch upon security operations and control. But we will discuss end-to-end how the security cloud security will work, and when you onboard
you are
an
going
application.
to cover everything, right?
Yeah, most of the securities.
Okay.
To point, I mean, I think this afternoon Sukrit and the what is his name? His name is Sukrit, right? Sukrit, Raina. So you also asked about some of the things, right? With my experience, that whatever I have gone through, I can touch upon, and you can also discuss, and we'll try to discuss, and maybe with my experience, whatever I have gone through, I'll explain.
Sure.
Because I worked on threat modeling for an application, for some of the applications in telecom industry. Okay, for the sake of risk assessment and risk management. So I had that experience as well. But I'll give my level best to answer your questions.
Thanks, Rajesh.
But is threat modeling not part of security operations, SecOps?
I mean, now it has been divided into security operations and control, but in initial days of my career, threat modeling is part of DevSecOps and DevOps actually. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Because it's a part of the requirement. Actually, once you gather the requirements, right, from the project or from the application, you need to identify the possible threats when you implement that architecture. Those are not the real threats, right? So once the application is built and somebody will do the penetration testing, and they will let you know what are the exact threats. But by looking at the architecture, what kind of threats that you can anticipate with the help of STRIDE model or VAST methodology, or something that we call a threat modeling actually. Did I answer your question, Vikas? Yeah. I'm just thinking because I'm working in an organization where there is a cloud migration happening, and we do have two different teams. The first one consists of security analysts. That's what we are doing, where we have a set of controls which we go through, and we search for evidences before a cloud is migrated or a lift and shift has been done to the cloud. And once these threats and vulnerabilities have been identified, we pass it on to different teams, because pen testing is one of our topics. But you guys use NIST 853 controls, huh? Exactly. It's based on NIST. But yeah, we have different policy from the corporate governance.
based on NIST. So we have derived these controls based on that topics. So
Makes sense.
that's where I was just thinking and trying to correlate my work. So maybe I will gather some questions.
Yeah, because I did a threat modeling for risk assessment because we got a project from one of the telecom client in the Saudi, okay, where our company identified out of their 300 applications or 400 applications in their organization, they identified that 100 applications are very critical as part of their business and reputation. Okay. So our job was to identify the risk assessment for those 100 applications. With those 100 applications, what kind of risks that can be anticipated and how to mitigate those risks. Right. As part of that risk assessment, that entire project has been divided into multiple jobs. The first thing is threat modeling, and the next thing is like risk penetration testing, and then control assessment. Once the control assessment is done, I mean, control assessment is nothing but a gap analysis, right? So once that is done, our risk assessment team will do the risk and they'll give the rating, and those risk ratings will be stored in the tools called Archer, and assigned to that specific application owner, saying that, hey, if you mitigate these risks, then your score will be high, increased or something like that. That kind of project that I did in one of my previous clients, or in my previous experience, actually.
Yeah. Okay. But okay. But our project is like much huge than what 300 applications. They are trying to migrate 3,000 applications.
So you guys are using any specific tools for threat modeling, like Threat Modeler?
No, that's what I say. We don't do it, and it's passed on to security. We do have different risk assessment teams. So the project is quite huge. So the teams are huge. So
makes sense.
It's we are talking about 3,000 applications until 2026 to be migrated. And they are revamping the old infrastructure. So there are some new applications. The old ones are being decommissioned, and there are new applications built on multi-cloud basis.
Makes sense.
Yeah, when you were talking about identity access management, there are like CyberArk, SailPoint.
Yeah, CyberArk is for PIM, right? Privileged Identity Management.
Exactly. So there are different tools being used. So for me, it is at the moment a bit confusing. So probably
if you don't mind, or if it is not so sensitive information, if you can just list out the tools that you guys are using. I mean, at least the vendor names. I'm not saying that the confidential information, so that at least we can touch up on those tools, and I can give you a brief on what exactly those tools are for.
Yes, I can actually prepare some questions based on what I am experiencing at the moment. It would be also useful this group. If it's useful for this group, we can also go through them, because there are some applications which are purely SaaS based. Like Salesforce is being built completely new for the client, and which will be integrated to the
Salesforce ServiceNow.
Yeah. So previously it was another CRM tool called Salesforce. I think no one has heard about it. It's a pure telecom CRM tool which is used since I think the 1996. So now they are like decommissioning that and building the whole solution on Salesforce, which is a SaaS-based provider, and which would be a third-party operated directly by Salesforce, and which would be integrated into the client's architecture. So that might be an interesting topic for IAM, for me at least, to know how will the integration with the, I mean, like how, if a person from the client's location, if the company person is accessing, an internal company person is accessing a system which is totally based on a SaaS provider somewhere outside the location, how would the identity access management works? What are the points that needs to be assessed as a security analyst, or what are the vulnerabilities that might come up, and how can we really detect them, and what needs to be taken care of? I can prepare some questions. Probably I can pass it on, and probably we can discuss as well then.
Sure, definitely. It will definitely help
For sure, I cannot
This
share
is
the
helpful for this entire
complete
group as well,
details,
if some
but
of them are new.
I will try to neutralize the question so that it's
Yeah,
more.
just generalize the question and let the audience know and me know. Then we can try to figure it out. What exactly is that, and how can we solve some of those problems? At least, if we can't solve 100 of the 100 out of 100 problems. At least we can discuss about those problems and try to see how those will be worked or solved in industry. All right, guys. If you guys don't have anything, we'll meet tomorrow. Thanks for your time. So this is the this is what we are going to discuss in next 30 days. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, so the class is for 30 days?
Yeah, minimum is 30 days. I mean, daily 1 hour. If you consider it is